What's up guys, I'm Dan with Royal Power Sports, and in this video we're going to show you how to properly set your sag. So our first process is just to get our sag scale set up. I use this nice Motion Pro sag scale. It's got an adjuster at the bottom that will go into the axle here, and then we can just get it set. And when you're setting up on the original, before we've got the bike on the stand, no weight on the rear tire, we're just going to find 0. And that way when we put our rider on it and he gets his weight position, it's just going to come down the scale, and then it's very easily going to tell us what our sag is set at, that we've been told by our suspension guys of where they want us to run it at. So first thing up, we're just going to get it zeroed out. So I'm just going to insert the bottom into the axle here, and then this just has a quick tighten and loosen. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen that up so I can slide this scale up and down. On the Honda, I typically just come right behind the side number plate, and then I'll just use this rim of the fender. I'm gonna put my 0 just right there on that. And I'm gonna snug that down, and then that'll come off and it'll stay right where it's supposed to be. That way when I go right back to it, we're right back to 0. Now we're ready to put the rider on it. So now that we've got everything zeroed out on our sag scale, we're gonna go ahead and have our rider get on, and we're gonna check our sag, see where we're at. Get our rider in a nice neutral position, and now we will put our sag scale back on. Note that I'm right behind my number plate here, and I'm using this ridge of my fender just to know that we are in the reading on the exact same spot that we were before. And it looks like we're right at 100 right here. I would like to run a little bit more than that, so let's go ahead and loosen that spring up a little bit. Now that we've got our initial reading and we've noticed that we didn't quite have enough sag, we're gonna go ahead and make that adjustment. So you can see in here that we've got our spanner nut, and we also have our top locker. I've already got the locker popped loose, so I'm just gonna spin it off out of our way a little bit. So we wanna add more sag to this, so that means I wanna loosen this spring up, which is gonna take more tension off of it, which is gonna let the rear end sag down further when our rider gets on it. So I'm actually able to just spin the spring itself, and that is also spinning that bottom spanner nut. And we're just gonna back that off a few turns here. We were at 100 millimeters of sag, and we're looking for more of the 105 to 108 range. So I'm just gonna back this off a few turns. The only thing you wanna keep in mind is that you don't wanna go too far to where you end up with your spring being loose. So you always wanna make sure that there is a little bit of tension on this spring. As you can see there, I'm a little loose, so I'm gonna have to tighten it back up a little bit. So we've backed off a little bit. We've got enough tension on our spring that it's not flopping around or anything. Note that we've got it back on the stand with our rear tire off the ground while we're making the adjustments. So now we're ready to put the bike back on the ground, put our rider back on it, and we'll see if we got it a little bit closer. Now that we have got our rider back on it, after we've made our adjustment, let's go ahead and check it, see where we're at now. Same process in the axle, right up against my rear fender there, and we're using this line, and it looks like we were able to pull a little bit more out. For our application, that'll be just fine. So now that we know that we've got our sag set where we want it, all we will do is we will put the bike back on the stand to get the weight off of the rear tire. We'll tighten those jam nuts up, which we'll show you, and we'll be good to go. The last process of this, once we've got the sag set where we want it, is we're gonna go ahead and lock those spanner nuts together. I like to use this Motion Pro tool. It's got a brass end on it, so you can tap on your spanners and not damage anything. But if you don't have one of these specialty tools, you could just use a punch or anything that will tighten those spanners together. So we're just going to run that top locking spanner spring itself. And once we've got it run down, we'll just come in here and give it a couple taps just to make sure it's good and snug. You do have to run these fairly tight because they will back off if you don't have them pinched tight enough. So a couple good taps, they're good and locked together. So now we've got our sag set for our rider, and we're ready to go. Sag is something that we check very, very frequently. As far as like on a supercross day, we'll check it before first practice, and then we might run the second practice with it if we didn't make any changes. But then before each moto, we will double check the sag. Just as everything moves and flexes, it's amazing how much that sag can change in a little amount of time. So it's a good idea to check that at least as often as you can.